More often than not, a day animating would begin with me consulting the shot list to decide what I needed to do next. Here you can see I'm doing a shot in the archive, and specifically working on one of the backgrounds. This is the first of several sped up clips that show me at work on my tablet at home. Here I'm sketching out one of the backgrounds, which is the wall view, visible when Gus is reading the papers. A variant of this background is also used in another shot which is slightly angled. And this is how that background appears as part of the finished film. Next up, I was working on a similar, but not exactly the same background from another shot in the archive of Casimir carrying the box on the table. This footage is sped up by 600%. Here you can see me picking up one of the sketches of the room. I tend to think of the building interiors like stop motion sets, so I lay out the positions of everything in the room and then think about where the camera would be. At this point, I briefly look at one of the other backgrounds in the archive to make sure I'm copying over the same elements, such as windows and bookshelves. I wanted the archive to feel like a grand place where enlightened robots might be. Here's a quick clip of me working on another shot from the archive of Gus and Casimir. Here I'm cleaning up the super rough line work into something more refined. And here's this shot in the finished film. You can see the line work here is slightly more rough as it was produced earlier in production than some of the later shots. Footage of me working on these shots on the rooftop makes up the majority of my in-progress footage. Here you can see me painstakingly colouring each individual frame of Gus jumping away from the lightning bolt, while taking care to make sure that the colours stay consistent and that there aren't any mistakes. This process is extremely time consuming. I never once considered using rigged animation or other similar methods during production of Fatal Error, because one of my intentions from the get-go was to try and avoid the animation looking too clinical and clean. I really wanted to capture the look of cel-shaded cartoons or animations from the 1990s, where backgrounds were often painted in a different style and the animation was slightly more rough looking and often done with different materials on painted cells. Doing this means that the process of creating individual shots was extremely labour intensive, but hopefully the end result was worth it. Looking back at this specific shot of Gus jumping away and then recoiling from the lightning bolt in close-up, it is one of the most satisfying shots that I worked on. So I'm glad that I spent so much time working on it after all. As I wasn't drawing a consistent object while I was drawing the frames of Gus's arms frantically swinging around, I found this quite difficult to do. I didn't want to just rely on smear frames because I think that's something that is a trap that's quite easy to fall into, to over rely on using smear frames. This is one of very few times in the whole film when I actually relied on using smear frames, and I think the effect just about works. Again, this footage has been sped up by 600%. That gives you an idea of how long this clip actually is. And here's the shot in the finished film. It's one of my favourites for sure.